Welcome back to SKG CIC Podcast series. Today we are talking about the web workforce. This is one of the most crucial area within the RTOs because we are talking about people. I'm Khush from SKG Consulting.
Hi everyone, I'm Sameer from CIC Group. Today we are diving into the topic that really sits at the heart of every RTO, which is wet workforce.
Absolutely. And to bring that to life, let's just go back to our very own simulated RTO Pathbridge. That's a dual sector RTO operating both in RTO and CRICO space. And they have qualifications of Diploma of Community Services and Diploma of Leadership.
That's correct. Now, the first issue that was raised during the recent internal audit was about trainer shortage. So let's start with Pathbridge's actual issue. It was primarily around losing 2 senior trainers in the community services department. Both left for the roles in government-funded well-being programs with better pay and less compliance load.
That's definitely a case of talent drain, Sam. I
Correct.
think the CEO at Pathbridge must be juggling with the classes and the timetable scheduling. And that's a very common trap for the colleges because to retain the good trainers becomes a challenge in the long term. And that I think there's no hard and fast rule of how you retain the good trainers. But what we've seen from our experiences, if there are good practices around the professional development of the trainers within the RTO, and if the trainers have a growth pathway within the college, the chances of them leaving the space is less in that scenario. What do you think about that?
Absolutely. It's very important to support your trainers because, as we have been discussing, and we know that for a fact that that's the intellectual capital that RTOs have, and you got to look after your people. That's the most important thing. Now, in case of Pathbridge, I believe, Kush, this opens up a broader conversation. Are RTOs offering enough to keep their workforce engaged? Because we have seen that the trainers have left and have joined places for a better pay and less compliance load.
Yeah.
So beyond just compliance, ticking the tick boxes, there's a question around whether they are actually engaging their workforce appropriately.
No, definitely. I think PD becomes the backbone of, retaining your workforce and keeping them motivated within the role. That also provides them a good platform of a learning pathway for themselves. And they can bring up any challenges and customize their PDs based on any gaps that they may have, and that directly impacts their delivery model within the college as well.
Correct.
So yeah. So let's look at the second non-compliance or second scenario within Pathbridge Institute. So there was a trainer who was onboarded with all the qualifications, all the credentials on paper at the time of commencing the employment. However, 4 weeks into the term, academic manager noticed a lot of gaps in the assessments and the paperwork that was coming through the trainer, the units that they were looking at, and the contextualization that was completed for those units. What do you think happened there?
See, again, just like Pathbridge, I have seen this very common issue across the board. In case of Pathbridge, I believe it's a sink or swim kind of a trap. And under the new standards, especially 3.1, Outcome Standards 3.1, it's all about workforce capability being measured, supported, and maintained on an ongoing basis and not just assumed. So it's important to, not just identify the issues as they have been in case of Pathbridge, but also have a plan moving forward as to proactively address those issues as well.
Yes, that's absolutely right, Sam. And I think this also brings us to, again, the same thing that, if there is a proper induction system within the college, if at the time of onboarding the trainers, any challenges or a customized PD is developed for the areas where they need support and where there are any gaps. These issues can definitely be addressed at a very early stage. And especially for the new trainers, it's very important to have the cross training within different trainers, different departments, and conduct regular moderations if possible and if required within the new set of trainers and within the groups of trainers, make them a part of the validation activities and the ongoing academic meetings, because every action within the RTO is a step towards a new learning for them.
Absolutely. And sometimes I've seen the trainers feel left out because if you don't if you don't involve them in your day-to-day operations, they being one of the most important part of your RTO, then there's no collective decision making, especially in terms of training and assessment. So it's important to make them, as you rightly mentioned, involve them in meetings and all the other important decision making, especially around training and assessment.
Definitely.
But I think the new standards is definitely in the right direction, in that direction. Okay, moving forward, there's another issue that was highlighted. It was about casualization of the workforce. So Pathbridge has shifted to a majority casual workforce to manage overheads, but they're struggling with continuity in learner engagement. Students are noticing gaps between the Pathbridge and lack of trainer consistency. Looks like they've got more of casual workforce, and that is reflecting in the quality of the training. I guess that's what is happening.
No,
What do
I
you have to
think
say?
this particularly is an interesting topic for me because, I get a lot of questions around that. Given the accounting background, is it better to have the trainers on casual contracts or full-time permanent contracts? There's no right and wrong answer in this scenario. We'll not touch the accounting side, but if we look at the compliance side, when we have casual trainers, the term casual itself defines it is casual. They can leave on a 4-hour notice period, and that leaves the college in a confusion state.
Correct.
And then the learners also, there's no consistency for the learners also. Whenever we advise any clients, we say that at least do a lock-in contract for a term so that you're not leaving the students in between with various trainers. There can be exceptional circumstances or, something that is not working out, or there's an emergency situation that is different. But from your side, if the college is just doing a casual arrangement with a 4-hour window of trainer leaving, that brings in a lot of gap in, how the trainers are managed and how the classes are managed in case the trainers are coming and going within the college.
Correct. Absolutely.
Becomes a very serious issue when it comes to the operational side of the college.
Absolutely. And I've seen that there's a shift happening now, compared to what I was seeing probably 5 to 6 years ago. Most of the RTOs now go for full-time trainers.
Yeah.
Which I think is a very good move.
No, I think there's definitely have to be a balance established, depending on, again, there is no one strategy that can work for every RTO, and, one size fits all will not work.
Correct.
Especially in this scenario. So, but if we talk about a medium-sized RTO, if they have some of the trainers on permanent positions to manage the faculty, and then they can have casual trainers to take on the classes, so that if there is a fallout or if there is any gap at any given point within the term, then the permanent trainer can step up and, they can address the issues. So there has to be a system and there has to be a thought put into how we are organizing it, rather than just keep on taking sessional trainers and keep on putting them and people are coming, leaving, going. That in itself is not a good culture within the organization when we talk about academics, because there's nobody leading it. There is no, progress on how things are happening. So that does lead to a lot of gaps within the college.
No, absolutely. Rightly put. I think bang on. That's correct. Yeah. Coming back to Pathbridge. Now, I believe the challenge here is primarily around balancing sustainability and stability. In their workforce. I think that's something that they'll probably need to consider moving forward.
For sure.
So, yeah.
The next one up that we have is skills gap in the industry to find the trained staff. This is a little bit of different challenge and a very, very common thing that we see. And we also had one of these questions in our webinar last week as well, that if there is a TAFE trainer who doesn't hold a vocational qualification, they have the skills, they have the experience, but then they struggle a little bit, or we may say that mapping becomes an issue for them. And then there is a bit of struggle on the systems and, how the validations are happening, how the mapping is happening within the vocational side. What do you think can be done in that scenario?
I think, as you rightly mentioned, this is a real challenge, and especially in the bigger RTOs where they've got trainers who are primarily coming in with a significant amount of industry experience, but they may or may not have the training and assessment qualification or the skills around assessment validation, mapping, and in those areas.
Yeah.
Now, I believe that is where the structured PD pathways come into play. Maybe a core delivery with an experienced trainer and a tech upskilling plan is something that'll probably work in this case.
Yeah.
Because anyhow, you have to work with those trainers, especially looking at their strengths, because they bring a lot of industry experience, which is what is truly valuable. But at the same time, you need skills for training and assessment as well. They need to have the knowledge to conduct the validations, to do the mapping and stuff like that. So yeah, a structured PD pathway, I think, is very important in this case.
No, I completely agree, Sam. And I think it's about valuing that industry knowledge and experience, and have a plan and have a structure of building the capability at the back end. I think that combination itself is something that RTOs have to embrace as the culture of moving forward within the revised standards. And expectation should not be to let it happen overnight or something, because it takes time. Like once you put the plan and once you put the actions in place, it takes time to show the results, re-scenario that way.
Right, absolutely. Okay, moving on to the next big issue, which appears to be around leadership in this case. The CEO of Pathbridge hasn't reviewed their workforce development plan for over 12 months. There's no plan for key roles, and when the academic manager resigns suddenly, there is no interim leadership. Now, that I believe is going to hit very hard, especially, when the leadership is a bit shaky.
Yes, and I think that leads to a compliance risk, not just an operational issue when we reach that stage, because leadership within the RTO needs to be forward looking. They have to think ahead of any problem happening or any risk emerging within the RTO. And that's not only about the college, for any business. It's a mandatory requirement for the leaders to think ahead of time and foresee the challenges and the risks and take actions before the problems or the issues occur. So with the workforce matrix tracked, just like the student outcomes, this can definitely be addressed if there is a structured PD plan in place, if there is a customized PD plan in place rather than just using a template. Because if you're replacing every trainer in the same category and providing them the same set of PDs, I don't think that's going to work within the revised standards, and that's never been a recommended strategy even within the previous standards, because we have to have a PD plan as per the requirements of the person, because they have their own skill sets that they bring on table, and then whatever gaps are there and whatever issues are there need to be addressed as part of the PD plan. What do you think?
No, absolutely. I mean, a structured professional development plan is the way to go forward. And especially, as you rightly mentioned, we have to be selective in terms of what professional development is required for individual positions. For example, someone sitting at the reception might need a different skill set. And their knowledge base will be a different one as compared to someone in the classroom. So the PD plan has to be structured and contextualized based on the positions that you have within the RTO. And not just that, I would probably take it a step forward where you can probably involve the person and call them in when you're creating a PD plan, and ask them as well, if there is anything that they want to be included in the professional development plan. Because that'll make it even more, simplified and more relevant.
True.
And it'll be, more acceptable as well, because then it's all about, involving your team while you're planning. So, I mean, exactly. In this case, governance isn't just about strategy, as we've been discussing. It's about people planning too. So it has to be done appropriately, involving individuals who are going to play a significant role in managing the workplace.
Definitely. And I think with the new standards, Sam, it's when we talk about the wet workforce, it kind of expands to all the staff that is involved within the RTO. It's not, I know within the old standards, the discussions around the PD and the professional development and the credentials and, everything was centered around the trainers and assessors. And I've always questioned this in my head, that why it's not relevant for the other staff that is involved within the RTO. And it's very good to see that within the new standards, with the wet workforce coming in place, that has expanded to everyone involved within the functions, whether it is the leadership roles or student support or admin staff, people operating on prisms. Everyone has a very specialized and a very niche skill set that is required to carry out the function that they are allocated. So there has to be a proper PD plan, and there has to be a proper induction, and we have to give them a strong foundation to grow.
Absolutely. I mean, this cannot be discounted at all. And that's pretty good. And I think today's episode wasn't just about the gaps. I believe it's a reminder that the workforce development is a core part of RTO operations and self-assurance.
Yes.
So, yeah.
No, definitely. And I think with moving forward into the new standards, we have to go by the principle that if we don't value the people within the RTO, there is no way we can build a culture of compliance, because people become the backbone of any operations, any functions that are carried out within the college. Providing them with proper resources, providing them with the proper platforms to grow is the responsibility of the art. And then also having proper systems to monitor their performance and making sure they are making use of the resources that are being provided is another layer that the leadership team within the RTO needs to kind of establish. And with that note, we can close off today's episode, because I think we can keep talking about the workforce otherwise.
Correct.
But thank you so much for today, and it was a great session.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
And see you next time on the SKG CIC Podcast series. Till then, take good care of yourself.
Stay compliant. Thank you.
Sure.